How much do you think it costs to launch your own online casino? $1 million? 10 million? What if I told you that some people have launched a casino for less than what others leave at a car dealership as a down payment? So why isn't the internet filled entirely with casino owners? Why aren't thousands of people launching their own casinos every single day? And why do most of these projects die before you've ever even heard of them? Today, I'm going to show you an industry that's surprisingly easy to enter. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why new online casinos keep appearing every single month, even though most of them will never grow into successful businesses. Most people imagine this business the same way. A massive office in Cyprus, hundreds of employees, teams of software engineers, cutting-edge technology, and millions of dollars in investment. But reality? Reality is both far less glamorous and far more interesting. Today, an online casino often works like a set of building blocks. Need a gaming platform? You can buy one. Need casino games? You can integrate them. Need payment processing? Ready-made solutions already exist. Need a license? There are companies that will help you get one. At some point, you realize that launching an online casino today is much easier than most people think. But that's where the first problem appears. Every piece of this puzzle takes its cut. And once you start relying on all these different providers, your business becomes dependent on every single one of them. If one piece breaks, you can probably guess what happens next. The platform, the game providers, the payment processor, business partners, streamers, affiliates. And before the very first player has even signed up for your casino, something interesting has already happened. There's already a line of people waiting to make money alongside you. And that's when it becomes clear why so many projects never turn into real businesses, because launching an online casino and building a profitable company are two completely different challenges. But if it's really that difficult, why is the internet flooded with online casinos of every shape and size? Why do new ones keep appearing over and over again? The answer is simple. The barrier to entry is surprisingly low. The industry has something called a white label solution. Put simply, it's a business in a box. You don't build your own platform. You don't develop your own games. You don't create your own payment infrastructure. Instead, you're given an almost turnkey system and launch a brand under your own name. And this is where things get really interesting. Sometimes dozens of different casinos are actually running on the exact same platform. They use the same technology, the same game providers, and nearly identical operating processes. In some cases, the only things that change are the logo, the website's color scheme, and the brand name. To the average player, it looks like an entirely new casino, but behind the scenes, the reality can be very different. But behind the scenes, the industry is far more complex. Almost every casino has its own passport, a gaming license, and if you take a closer look at the industry, you'll notice something interesting. Some licenses give operators access to more markets and greater opportunities, while others make it much faster and easier to get up and running. Some jurisdictions are expensive, others are far more accessible. This is where many people first realize that online gambling has grown into a truly global business, an industry supported by operators, legal teams, regulators, and an entire ecosystem built around them. But a license is only the beginning, because once your casino goes live, one question matters more than anything else. Who is actually going to play there? Most people assume the biggest expense is building the website or integrating the games. In reality, the most expensive thing is attention. Traffic. This is where the real war begins. Launching a platform is relatively easy. Getting someone to choose your platform over thousands of others is much harder. That's why the entire industry is fighting for the very same player. And the smartest companies are already playing the long game. A favorite streamer. The normalization of gambling-related content among younger audiences. No moralizing here, just a simple fact. Today, Many of these brands begin earning customer loyalty long before a potential player has achieved any real financial stability. And when that much money is on the line, competition becomes incredibly intense. If you ask a casino owner what the most valuable asset in their business is, there's a good chance they won't say the website, the license, or even the games. They'll say it's the players. And the people who know how to bring those players in, the ones who can work around regulations, bypass restrictions on platforms like Facebook, run gray area advertising campaigns, slip past moderation systems, and put the right offer in front of the right audience. The people who constantly find ways to outsmart multi-billion-dollar tech companies that keep introducing new barriers, or at least appear to be trying, because without players, nothing else matters. That's why this industry is in a constant battle. A battle for attention, for traffic, for talent, for the specialists who know how to run advertising campaigns and turn clicks into customers, for the chance to be just one click closer to the next player. And from the outside, it's easy to underestimate just how ruthless that competition can become. Today, a single popular streamer can bring in more players than a massive advertising campaign. That's why streamers have become valuable business assets in their own right. Casinos compete to sign them, to keep them, to lure them away from competitors, to buy out existing deals, to offer contracts that are simply too good to refuse. For viewers, it looks simple. A streamer changes the logo on the screen, but behind that decision, there can be months of negotiations and millions of dollars. But streamers are only part of the story. They're the visible part, the part everyone has gotten used to seeing. There's another group of people who can shape the fate of an online casino. Partners, affiliates, individuals and companies that know how to acquire players. Sometimes they become so powerful that they can dictate terms to the casino operator itself. If you ask a casino owner what the most valuable asset in their business is, there's a good chance they won't say the website, the license, or even the games. They'll say it's the players, and the people who know how to bring those players in. The ones who can work around regulations, bypass restrictions on platforms like Facebook, run gray area advertising campaigns, slip past moderation systems, and deliver the exact audience the casino wants. The people who keep finding ways to outsmart multi-billion-dollar tech companies that introduce new restrictions year after year, or depending on who you ask, simply appear to be trying, because without players, nothing else matters. That's why this industry is in a constant state of war. A war for attention, for traffic, for talent, for the specialists who know how to run advertising campaigns and turn traffic into customers. For the chance to be just one click closer to the next player. And from the outside, it's easy to underestimate just how ruthless that competition can become. Today, a single popular streamer can bring in more players than an entire large-scale advertising campaign. That's why streamers have become valuable business assets in their own right. Companies compete for them. They fight to keep them. They try to lure them away from rivals. Sometimes they buy out existing deals. Sometimes they offer contracts that are simply too good to refuse. To the audience, it looks simple. A streamer changes the logo on the screen. But behind that decision can be months of negotiations and very large sums of money. But streamers are only part of the story. They're the visible part, the part everyone has grown used to. There's another group of people that can determine the fate of an online casino. Partners, affiliates, the individuals and companies that know how to acquire players. The individuals and companies that know how to acquire players. Sometimes they become so influential that they can dictate terms to the operator itself. And that's where the paradox begins. The casino may belong to one group of people, but the flow of players is controlled by someone else entirely. There's also another resource that rarely gets talked about in public. People, the specialists, the marketers, analysts, managers, the people who know how to acquire players, retain affiliates, and scale a business. Sometimes companies aren't just competing for players. They're competing for the people who know how to find those players in the first place. But that's a story for another day. And trust me, it's full of fascinating stories of its own. Now imagine this. You've spent years building a brand. You've invested millions, bought advertising, worked hard to build a reputation. And one day, you discover that someone else is using your name to siphon away your traffic. It's the same as in almost any competitive industry, just far more aggressive, because if you don't dominate the search results, someone else will. If you don't protect your brand, someone else will try to capitalize on it. If you don't register a domain name, somebody else probably will. Sometimes websites appear that look almost identical to the original. Mirror sites emerge. Entire pages are copied. New projects are built around someone else's brand recognition, because a player's attention is money. And the fight for that attention can take many different forms. This is where you start to see the darker side of the business. No one is going to protect you, not the courts, not the police, not copyright law. You agreed to play by the rules. Your competitor may not believe there are any, and once serious money is involved, competition extends far beyond advertising. Information wars begin. Public disputes, accusations, attempts to influence regulators, even efforts to use government institutions, not to defend a brand through legal channels, but to push a competitor out of the market for as long as possible. Sometimes, competitors begin taking a very close look at how another company operates. They search for weaknesses. They send in spies posing as job applicants or new employees. Sometimes they try to damage a rival's reputation. Sometimes they make extremely serious allegations, including accusations of financing prohibited or terrorist organizations. Sometimes those accusations turn out to be true. Sometimes they don't. And this is where you realize that this industry isn't just about games and polished websites. It's a massive global market fueled by intense competition and enormous amounts of money. Now let's go back to the question we started with. Why is the internet flooded with online casinos? Because launching one today is far easier than most people imagine. But building a successful business is still incredibly difficult. Most people think this industry is a battle between players and casinos. In reality, it's often a battle between casinos themselves. They're fighting for the same player, the same attention, the same market. And in that fight, everything becomes a weapon: money, technology, marketing, reputation, sometimes government institutions, sometimes methods that are rarely discussed in public. So the next time you're watching a movie on a pirate streaming site and another casino ad pops up, you might look at it a little differently. Because sometimes it isn't just another flashy brand with a successful business behind it. Sometimes it's the same people, the same platform, the same games, the same partners, sometimes even the exact same traffic sources. Only the logo has changed. And this is only a glimpse beneath the surface of an industry that generates billions of dollars, destroys lives, and almost never reveals how it truly operates. In the next episodes, we'll look at who actually makes more money than the casino operators themselves, why some casinos spend years operating at a loss, how players are really acquired, why affiliates sometimes become more powerful than the casinos they work with, and why the industry's most fascinating stories almost never make the headlines. We've only just opened the door.